So hello and welcome, I'm Frederick Dunn, and today we're doing an update on this Apimaye hive. Now, if you've watched the other videos before, we hived a swarm in this on September the 4th, and I want you to look at the landing board, because before I do any updates on hives or do inspections, I spend a considerable amount of time sitting outside just looking to see what's going on. I also look at the ground. I look to see if I have dead bees out there, if I have trembling bees walking around, or any indicators of potential illness, disease, or maybe something even attacking the bees and killing them. So everything seems pretty quiet here, but I'm not that enthusiastic about the number of bees here. This is being videoed on September 20th, so this is 16 days after we hived that swarm. And if you want to see that process and you want to see what we put in here and what it looked like then, there'll be a link down in the video description connecting you to that YouTube. Guard bees are doing what they're supposed to do, keeping other bees away. We have a perfect weather day. In fact, this is supposed to be the best weather day of the week. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to get inside the hive and see what's going on. And when you're looking at the landing board this time of year, September 20th, during this segment, we should see a lot of pollen coming in. When you hive the swarm here, they had a queen, a laying queen, and we had plenty of bees. So I don't really like the number of bees I see here, and I make this comparison by looking down the line at the other colonies in the apiary, including the beehive that the swarm emitted from. And they're all bustling. So we're going to learn a little bit about how they're using the space. This is a 10 frame deep Apimaye brood box. I'm also curious to see how well they're sealing up the vented slats in the feeder shims inside here. Because we know we don't have any control over the ventilation through the top. There's vents front and back on this cover. And then we have these little slats all the way around what's a combination inner cover slant feeder shim. So these boxes have been filled twice. They hold about a half a gallon each, so we've given them 2 gallons of sugar syrup, 1-to-1 this time of year. And if we look closely, we can see that they're propolizing these little slats as quick as they can. And I notice that they're closing up those that are towards the center first. In fact, they're barely touching the outside edges. There's a little moth right there. No telling how that rascal got in there. Also, let's see what the feed situation is. They're empty. That's good, because I don't want to be dealing with full ones if I'm going to pull them off and investigate what's going on inside. That's what's going on over here. I find that they take the feed down equally on either side. So we're going to take these off. We're going to see if they even propolize them down at all. Keep in mind, they've only been in this hive for 16 days. And we've had okay weather. Oh, I don't even have to pry that up. It's not even sticking down. Why am I wearing full protective gear today? Well, because I'm inspecting a lot of hives. And some of them are not as friendly and laid back as this one is. That's stung on the thumb. I know a lot of you don't care. And the gloves that I'm wearing are goatskin gloves. Bees tend to not pay any attention to those. So I'm just going to set this off to the side. We're going to pull the next one off as well. Nice and warm outside. You can see the sun is high, so we can get a good look into the hive. Also not stuck down. Bees on the bottom. We can see here how they're propolizing those little slats again towards the middle, and none around the perimeter really. Interesting there. So the bees really can't control the venting that goes out through the top. And again, as you can see, it's 10 frame deeps. And we don't have a lot of bees here. I did use light smoke on them, so we don't want them to be alarmed. We're going to pull out these frames. They're marked A and P for Acorn or Premier. So we get to see what the bees were using first. This is one of the Acorn frames. Has capped honey on it, so they're doing okay. But I would expect to see a much larger population. So I'm going to skip over that first frame and I'm going to pull this one. And look what we have, a problem. Those are supersedure cells. That's right. They're making queens. And they're not just cups either, because when you look inside through the bottom here, every one of them has a larva in it. And I don't see any open larvae other than that one right there. Seems like it's fairly mature. We don't have eggs. We don't have young larvae here. I think our swarm swarmed. So the queen must have been laying eggs. That's how they made these queen cells here. We got one on the back here. 2 on the back. Also with larvae inside. We have some capped worker brood. We have some capped drone brood, which is weird. No eggs. They're still bringing in pollen, of course, because they have to make bee bread. They do have to feed these developing queens. So, I guess they didn't stick around for very long. We have a pickle here. Here we are, September the 20th, and they are making queens. There are still drones around, but not a lot. This is a terrible time of year for them to be reproducing. And again, these aren't normal swarm cells. Swarm cells would be around the edges. These are emergency cells or supersedure cells because they're in the field there. So I think when the queen left, for whatever reason, with the main group of bees here that we put in, she had some eggs there, or they couldn't have made, there's some open larvae there, just a handful. Some capped. Honey's being stored. So she must have had eggs, or they couldn't develop queen cells from them. And it hasn't been long enough for laying workers to develop. That would have been 21 days away from when the queen departed. So how many frames do we have that are in play here? 1, 2, 3, about 3.5 or 4 frames. So I'm going to close these up. I have to think about what I'm going to do with them. That's tough. We're going to look around here again. So they were drawing out acorn frames. One of the frames we already had in there, and they started on one of the premier frames on one side. And I'm pushing them all near the middle, of course, so that I can pull them to the side next time I get into this. I'm going to put these covers back on. And of course move back in so that the propolis slats that they've been working on stay towards the center. We don't want to give them new work to do, but they really have their work cut out for them considering the number of bees that's left in here. There were more than twice this many bees before, which looked like a really strong swarm, strong colony. They swarmed right from another hive, right in the same apiary. And I know some of you may guess, well, did they go back to the other colony? No, because they have a queen with them. They left with her. Get that little one there on the left out of here. Close that up. Now we have some thinking to do. You're kind of doomed. I don't know what to tell you. Late in the year. This is what the landing board looks like. Not impressed. They are spreading their Nasanov pheromone out there to recover any of the bees that may have flown out during my inspection. And again, I like to look down the line here and see what the other hives are doing. They're bringing in pollen like gangbusters. The hive that the queen that they swarmed out of, they're doing great too. Lots of pollen coming in. So this is the only one, except look at this little nucleus box in the foreground there, number 3. Their activity is pretty low too. And they only have a 5/5 configuration, so I'm thinking maybe I could combine these. Maybe I could pull some resources out of number 3 here and put them in the Apimaye hive. That's going to require a look-see. We're going to have to open this one up and see what's going on. See what their status is, because they don't look super productive to me. So I pulled the bricks off the top. This is the insulated R10 cover. You can see it was wrapped up with duct tape, which is Seen better days. It's been through a whole winter. So we're going to pull this off. The propylize down pretty nice. And they are working the upper frame, so if these were capped with honey, I'd be thinking about pulling one of these out and fortifying the Apimaye hive with it. But instead I see here that they're actually edging up their brood there a little bit. They're putting a bunch of nectar in there, loads of pollen. So these are doing pretty good for the tiny swarm that we put in there. So a nucleus box, 5/5, we have a bunch of brood down in the lower box there, which is 5 frames. But since this is not capped honey, they still have some work to do before they can be ready for winter. And they will continue to fortify themselves right into late October here. We have a lot of resources in the environment still. Just going to give you a close look here. A couple of drone cells up here in the top, but look at all the pollen, look at the nectar. They're actually doing a pretty good job, better than I would have guessed based on the activity at the entrance. So nothing here that I can really pull. I'm going to leave them with their resources and I'm going to close them right back up. So there goes that idea. And I don't want to get into the larger resource nucleus boxes. They're 3 stacks of 5 frames each, and they're doing fantastic. I have no interest in weakening those, just to fortify the Apimaye hive, which may not work out. But then it occurred to me, this is an Apimaye hive, so I could actually reduce the space in here. So let's get back into it. I'm going to turn this box into a nuke. Yeah, you might be wondering, how can you do that? Well, they come with partitions. So they have the partition for turning the brood box into a double nuke. Or in this case, I think I'm going to shove them all over and make a single nucleus hive out of it. So I'm going to pull some frames out, leave the frames in here that have resources on them or that have drawn comb. And I'm going to shift them all over and make myself a nucleus hive here. It's kind of the best case scenario this late in the year. See how they do. So let's pull all the frames out that have nothing on them. Light smoke. Keep everybody calm. Don't oversmoke them. In fact, they're probably still pretty calm for the first time I was into them because not a lot of time has passed. So get this one out of here. That's an acorn frame. No development. Another acorn frame. Nothing being drawn. Disappointed that they all took off like that. I guess I should be happy that they left half their complement behind. So we have at least something to work with. Pull this one out. So I'm going to pull 5 frames. Here we go. And then we'll just push the others that are left right over to the right hand side. Now where my left hand here is, that's the eastern side. So I'm pushing them to the west. And remember that on the landing board, it's this side that has the opening, so I don't want to fiddle with giving them a new opening position. We're going to keep everything the same as much as possible. I always manage to get stung by just pushing my finger down on a bee that just happens to be where I put my finger. So let's not smash anybody here. Don't want them all to get upset, but I am curious to see if I can put this partition board in here with wooden frames and have it fit. We're going to close these vents off. So you have the option to have that vented. And we're going to just close it. No airflow there. Because I want to give them the smallest space I can where they can control the environment. Now because I'm testing it, I'm not going to put insulation on top of them. Because I'm not going to block up those vent holes, even though I don't like them. But the fit here with that partition board was really good. And yes, it went all the way to the bottom because I used the right one. It comes with 2. One's shallow and one's deep. And the deep one is here to divide the brood. And also I'm going to use the other side of this to store the empty frames for later. So I won't have to go hunting around for them. I'm also curious to see if it'll fit all 5 wooden frames there with this new nucleus established on the other side. Let's see how snug it is. And this will help me later when they do build up. I can just open up the side, or I can add a second level and put the other partition board in that and have a double-decker 5-frame nuke and keep this side to the east completely closed off. And here's the moment of truth. Will this last frame fit in here? Kind of snug, but it does. Look at that. So then when we put this feeder shim on top, it should actually close them up completely so they can't migrate at all to the other half of this Apimaye brood box, and it works. There's no space there for the bees to travel through. I'm kind of impressed by that configuration, actually. It's pretty cool. I got to get the bees off of this one because anything I put over here will then be trapped. Let's just shake these off real quick. There you go. And then we'll close things back up with that one. So now we have a 10-frame box with a divider in it that turned it into a 5-frame nuke. That's pretty handy. I don't have any other beehives that I could do that with. And of course, we're going to feed them sugar syrup for sure. And we're not late enough for me to start loading them up with 2-to-1, so instead I'm still feeding 1-to-1 sugar syrup. Lots of forage for them, lots of opportunity out in the environment, so. Plus I had this handy. I was going to put that in there. Now at the end of September, if they're still taking in syrup and they're building up again, and by some miracle, if they've made a queen, and if she gets mated, we might be in luck here with these guys. So we're going to follow up. You can see what's happening. So now we did all that. Today is September the 21st, 71 degrees Fahrenheit, 92% relative humidity, which makes it really hard for the bees to dehydrate the honey they have in there. And we've got lightning strikes 5 miles away. And this is just a quick glimpse at the forage that they have. They have acres of Maximilian sunflowers are coming in. We have regular sunflowers still. We have Cosmos still, and here it's raining. I'm getting out here between rainstorms because I want to show you the activity change on the landing board even on the stormy day. Their productivity is actually up today. So I think that by providing them with a tiny space, 5 frames instead of 10, one side that's vented instead of both, they were losing a lot of heat through the top, and we do have cold nights right now. I think they can manage the space better, and therefore can put more foragers out into the environment to help provision them, because they're hatching queens soon. They'll be capping those by the end of the week. So just a close-up, rain on the landing board here, and they're capable of guarding and defending themselves. They still have the little 3 openings there. But I would say that their activity, especially considering that it's been raining off and on, that it's overcast, and that the weather is turning, and that we even hear distant thunder, I think they're much better off in this configuration. But I just could not justify pulling resources from the nucleus next door, because I want them to make it, of course. They have a queen. And I don't want to take away resources from other nucleus resource hives, because we are in the crunch here on September the 21st. So I'm just going to test their resolve, see how well they do what they can do. I'm only going to put sugar syrup on for now, and then we're going to see how they progress into October, so there will be updates on that. And you can check them out. So what do you think? Now I could have gone through and smashed all the queen cells, ordered in a mated queen, installed her, and put them right back in business right away. But I don't need more bees. So here we've got the sky situation. Distant thunder, don't know if you can hear any of that. But we have more rain coming in. In fact, as soon as I finished shooting the sequence, it started raining again. So thanks for watching. I hope you appreciated the update on the Apimaye hive and how convenient it is to divide it in half and turn it into a nucleus hive. You could even have a double nuke in a single deep Apimaye brood box. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. And I wish you all the best with your own beekeeping.